A 32-year-old Kafka went from being a cleaner of kaiju intestines and a total loser to becoming one of the strongest kaiju in history with a record-breaking fortitude level of 9.8. But that's not all. His kaiju beholds a huge secret that chose him for a reason, one of which is to kill all other kaiju and unlock the truth behind their world. However, as a defense force officer, Kafka has the lowest percentage of release power at a grand total of 0%. In his childhood, Kafka wanted to be the captain of the defense force. After all, it started with a lifelong promise that he made with the person he wanted to protect and fight the kaijus with, Mina. One fateful day, before he could even become an officer, his life would take a drastic turn. The promise Mina and Kafka made to stand next to each other was put on hold, as only one of them progressed ahead, with Mina being so powerful that she became the captain of Division 3. On the other hand, Kafka kept failing the Defense Force exam year after year until he gave up and joined Monster Sweeper Inc. So basically, you know how Asian parents keep calling us out saying study, putter, or you become a freaking garbage man? That literally happened to this dude. But it's not all doom and gloom, as Kafka was more skilled and knowledgeable than anyone else at his job. He was the best garbage man ever, and he still aspired to be more. However, reality hit hard like a truck, because even if he wanted to stand amongst the strongest people of the anti-kaiju force, his dream was squashed by being too old to retake the exam. Thus, he completely gave up on pursuing his dream until the new recruit, Leno Ichikawa, reminded him that the age limit of the exam had been increased to 33. This made Kafka realized that he still had one last attempt where he could give his all instead of accepting a mediocre fate. However, whilst on a mission, a Yoju, which is a small kaiju, suddenly attacked them, but Kafka pushed Ichikawa away from harm, almost sacrificing himself in order to save the intern. Both of them were no match for it, which is why before either of them died, our waifu Mina flexed on everyone, no-scoping that bad boy, proving she's the baddest bitch slaying it. Following this, both Ichikawa and Kafka were in the hospital getting treated when the most unhinged thing happened. Kafka's friend arrived, a kaiju. It chose Kafka and claims he finally found him. Thus, Kaiju number 8 was born. Ichikawa immediately learned what happened, keeping it a secret. And as a result of this transformation, Kafka would become a mindless machine of chaos and be killed by the person he promised to stand with, Mina. I mean, look at his scary face. Okay, maybe not. This is because the kaiju actually did not take over Kafka. Rather, he had fully fused with the parasite to become a hybrid. His heart had been replaced with a core, which is a weak point present in the body of every kaiju. Number 8 looks for specific targets rather than attacking any human around, where we also come to know it has the urge to kill all other kaiju in chapter 36, pushing Kafka even further. Now what's crazy is that this was perhaps the first case in history where not only had a kaiju picked a human host, but the vessel had retained its full consciousness. But look here, right? We would all want to gain this badass transformation. But do you really want to piss from your nipples instead of your ding dong? Okay, that only happened once. Because number 8 is sentient and is actually a baby learning from his host Kafka about emotions and ethics of the world. Stick around to find out, as 3 months later, a news report states the Defense Force was looking for him as he became wanted. However, Kafka and Ichikawa could not let anyone else know this secret because it would instantly kill their dreams and, well, Kafka himself. This is why Kafka appeared in the exam without transforming, which he could control willfully. He cleverly hid using his power when he met Kikuru Shinomiya in the parking lot of the exam, showing that he could use partial transformation to boost certain parts of his body, like his arms. But much like the basement dwellers that never touch grass, Shinomiya wonders why Kafka stunk like shit. Similar to a kaiju, where conveniently these two used the excuse of being garbage men. This planted a seed for her interest in Kafka's strength. However, becoming an officer was no easy task, because it turned out Kafka was the weakest candidate. I mean, tell me one shonen where the 15-year-old isn't stronger than the 32-year-old with all the trading in the world.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So the examinees were given Defense Force suits that have kaiju muscle fibers in them, increasing their strength. Unfortunately, Kafka was the first candidate ever to not draw any significant power from it. There is a huge reason behind this, which I will reveal later on in the video. As unlike everyone else, Kafka realized the drones were not only there to monitor how many kaiju they killed, but to judge their teamwork and adaptability. So despite being dead lost, Kafka decides to be useful by contributing his support and knowledge towards the mission's success, earning himself a cadet position in the force.
Congratulations.
This was so Kafka could be kept under the watchful eye of Captain Levi. Captain Soshiro. Nonetheless, things were looking good for Kafka, who vowed to fulfill his dream of standing by Mina's side in battle, only to receive punishment of 100 push-ups for disrespecting her title as commander.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
The dude couldn't catch a break, but from this point forward, Kafka had to rely on his kaiju powers as little as possible, because Shinomiya, the biggest threat, could kill him at any time. It's gonna be tough, but I'm sure he can do it. Yeah, that lasted around 2 chapters. Shinomiya had discovered Kafka's kaiju secret when he saved the girl from Kaiju No. 9. Thankfully, she agreed with Ichikawa and Kafka not to spill the beans, but made sure Kafka knew she would kill him if he turned into a threat. After 2 months, Kafka did his marksman training, being able to unleash an incredible 1% of his armor's strength. Hell yeah, dude! I'd brag about that too! That night, Kafka studied rather than sleeping, where Soshiro arrived to tell him he overheard everything about Kafka's promise. He warned him not to get too friendly with people in this kind of job, but was swiftly interrupted by a siren. His first official mission was underway. It didn't take long for Kafka to get a much-needed reality check, witnessing the absurd strength of Mina, as well as the power needed to stand by her side from Soshiro. Kafka isn't much use with his measly 1% output, but he provided valuable support by reporting the location of the enemy's kaiju cores. But then he showed up, Kaiju No. 9. With the lives of his friends at stake, Kafka was left no choice. He had to transform. No. 9 instantly recognized Kaiju No. 8 and mentioned how it was stronger than him. Thus, he wanted Kafka's corpse for himself. But since he's a shonen MC, Kafka pulled up with all his power and he got the job done easily for the time being. However, he was discovered by some members of the squad who instantly snitched on him to get killed or researched upon. You can't trust these dudes. Hence, Kafka had to retreat, but his luck ran out as he instantly was noticed by Captain Hoshina. It was so over for Kafka, bro. Everyone knows an unwritten shonen rule: never mess with characters who have their eyes closed. You know what I'm saying? This fight made Kafka realize how absolutely inhuman he was in the kaiju form, because he could do things beyond what he had ever imagined, such as dodging high-speed attacks and even regrowing a cut-off arm. In fact, Hoshina remarked that Kafka was a Daikaiju, or a giant in terms of power level, meaning his fortitude level was easily over 8.0 at this point. According to Mina, this was the first emergence of a Daikaiju since 5 years ago in an incident called the Fukuoka case. But with his awful stats, it was impossible for Kafka to overcome the difference between him and Hoshina, even with kaiju powers. On top of that, he did not want to attack his vice captain, so he looked for the first chance to escape and run away. However, Hoshina was so skilled that within just a few minutes of sparring, he realized that he was fighting a human instead of a monster. Then, another Another massive attack arrived thanks to Kaiju number 10, along with a huge swarm of Yoju. This time, the target was Division 3's home, Tachikawa Base, right where Kafka and his allies of the squad were present. The entire squad barely made it through fighting this crazy attack, with Hoshina exerting himself to his very limits to take down the main culprit number 10. But just when they were celebrating their victory, the Kaiju summoned a super giant Yoju bomb. Nobody was in the state to fight at the time, and if it exploded, it would have killed almost every officer of Division 3. Seeing that he had no option, Kafka decided to risk everything, even his lifelong dream, where he transformed, exposing his secret to everyone. He was willing to sacrifice himself to save his friends, just like he'd done for Ichikawa in the beginning. Hence, he rushed towards the Yoju bomb, shocking Hoshina with how fast he was. As soon as he transformed, the squad was informed that he was indeed number 8, with a fortitude reading of 9.8. As a result, Kafka immediately sent the bomb flying outside the shields of the base, effectively saving the entire troop. But now his time was up. It would be even more accurate to say that his time to live as a human was over, as Mina, his childhood friend, took him into custody as number 8. This sparked panic within the defense agency, as they wondered how a kaiju had infiltrated their ranks, and what should they do further. It was decided that Kafka would be handed over to the agency headquarters and imprisoned until the Director General examined him. But you might be wondering, ABD, why the heck did Kaiju number 8 choose Kafka out of all people? Especially since the dude is old and the only human with almost no combat power. Like, even Kaiju number 9's goal was to absorb the strongest defense members, such as Mina. But this might be the very reason why Kafka was the chosen one. Just like Asta having zero magic in Black Clover, and Deku having no quirk, making them the perfect hosts for their powers. Kaiju number 9's reaction to number 8 is more than enough to tell us that it is one of the strongest kaijus in history. But however, wielding such a high level of power is not easy. The Defense Corps found a way to use the immense strength of numbered kaijus through weapons made out of them. The kaijus still have a very strong sense of self, which is why the officer requires intense training using them. Moreover, we get another example of a kaiju choosing the host of its own will. After Hoshino defeated Kaiju number 10, it was contained for research and extracting information on number 9's plan. But since number 10 also had human intelligence, it asked only one thing in the bargain: Hoshino would turn into his weapon. It was extremely difficult to deal with such a case, since even as a weapon, number 10 wanted to do as it pleased, going against Hoshino at every step of the way, making it extremely dangerous. This tells us that unlocking the 100% power of a living kaiju is just on another level. Hence, only someone with no combat power could fully maximize a kaiju's ability, which made Kafka the right host. In fact, he had merged so perfectly that when the General Isao showed an X-ray of Kafka's body to Kikuru, there was something peculiar. In the place where his heart should be, Kafka had a core, making it clear that he was no longer a human. On top of that, it looks like Kafka, being the best garbage man, played a role in his exposure to kaiju, as he was doing this for a long period of time, getting drenched in their blood and other substances. This gives another reason why his ability to draw power from his suit was 0%. The equipment is made out of kaiju cell. It strengthens the connection to numbered monsters, gradually transforming the user. In other words, the equipment requires a human for power, merging them with monster cells, and over time, the host becomes as close to a kaiju. But if Kafka had already turned into a monster, his cells would see another one coming from the outside as a threat and counterattack. However, Kafka was set on proving that he still had worth as a human instead of a monster. He wanted to be valued as an officer rather than a tool, leading to the director releasing his restraints. After all, if Kafka wanted wanted to. He would have easily broken through them with his raw power. But just when he thought they understood, Isao pointed a gun and fired. Well, what could some bullets do? As Kafka saves himself. But this was a trap the general set up. It's a trap! Proving exactly what he thought. That any life form that could stop bullets with bare skin could never be a human. In his eyes, Kafka was simply a monster to be neutralized. But my man is a shonen MC, so he was stubborn enough to claim his humanity, where Isao ordered him to die in his human form while arming himself. What followed was a brutal battle where Kafka tried his best not to transform as long as he could save himself. However, it was his bad luck that he was up against the strongest soldier of the defense force. Like, come on! We all know another shonen rule. The old guy is the baddest bastard on the planet and is insanely OP. And so, it happens. Things get even worse. Kafka loses control of his body, reacting to a powerful aura, as if it was detecting a Kaiju. The general's suit was made out of Kaiju No. 2, who was an extremely destructive monster. Before Kafka could even process this pressure, Isao blew off his legs and arm, as well as landing a huge attack at his chest. However, rather than destroying Kafka's core, Isao managed to bring out his true form. But something was different. This was no longer just Kafka using Kaiju No. 8's power. Instead, it was the creature itself who had taken over to survive. With every passing second, Kafka was losing his right to live, holding on to humanity. But within his mind, Kafka suddenly came across the real monster inside him. The kaiju had already gone berserk enough to chant "kill" over and over again, making Kafka's body mindlessly attack Isao to the point that only No. 2's shields were saving him. Since Kaiju No. 8 sensed a threat to its life, it decided to ditch the symbiotic existence with Kafka. It was revealed that all kaijus have their own will and behave differently. They could even retain memories of their previous users. For example, when Kikoru Shinomiya started using her mother's equipment, Kaiju No. 4's memories of her Kairi's speed and strength could be seen by her. And until she achieved the same level as her mother, the kaiju didn't approve of her. Similarly, Hoshino taking up No. 10's offer of turning into an equipment, it wasn't easy, as he had to listen to the monster's wishes of going berserk on other kaiju. Hence, it's evident that Kaiju No. 8 also has its own desire, since it was sentient enough to speak when it found Kafka. The very fact that it was looking for him is proof that it wants to use him for an objective. For example, eliminating all other evil kaiju as the strongest, since, No. 9 is also determined to have that title. Just look at chapter 105. They literally have a "nah, I'd win" moment from Kafka himself. However, as of now, No. 8 unleashed such an extreme amount of power that Kafka's body was completely falling apart. The fight was no longer a clash between humans. It had turned into a brawl between two egotistic kaijus going head to head. But there's a twist. It turns out Isao wasn't bad after all. Instead, he wanted to test out the limits Kafka could go to and how well he could control himself. In other words, the general gave Kafka a chance to prove his humanity, but No. 8's fortitude had already surpassed all expectations. As a result, Kafka was battling the kaiju, barely managing to fight it with the memories of Mina and Kikoru pushing him to retake control. He remembered that giving up was not an option anymore, so he stopped right before No. 8 killed the general. He once again claimed that his identity was Kafka Hibino, not Kaiju No. 8.
It was perfect. Perfect.
This incident made Kafka realize that if he was going to turn into a kaiju, both in mind and body, he'd rather die as a human. He had no control when he turned into a kaiju, but at least he had control over how he would die. But good news arrived. The general decided that Kafka could be controlled, so he would be used by the defense force to show his usefulness, instead of being researched upon, his body dismembered, eyes popping out just for him to turn into a weapon used against his own will, you know what I'm saying? Plus, think about it. He got called by his name by the general for the first time ever. He got some respect. However, the chance for Kafka to prove himself came too soon, as he and Shinomiya were sent on a mission to dispose of ant-type kaijus. For this, Kafka decided to partially transform so that he could maintain control, but he realized that with this much power, he couldn't defeat any kaiju, where suddenly something beyond his imagination happened. He couldn't transform at all, and his shock was far from over, as suddenly he was against Kaiju number 9. Kikuro Shinomiya began fighting whilst Kafka was still struggling with his ability. We learned that ever since fighting the general, Kafka has been subconsciously filled with the fear that he might lose control and harm his friends. But understanding that this fear was eternal and not caused by number 9 or external factors, Kafka finally turned into Kaiju number 8. Overcoming his fear made him mentally stronger than before, as letting number 8 take over his body even once showcased to him the extent of how well he could fight. Thus, he immediately confronted and defeated number 9 with his newfound control over his kaiju form. And this was not all. In the aftermath of this fight, Kafka and General Narumi, in their tired state, realized that number 9's true target was Isao Shinomiya and kaiju number 2's power. What? That's right, this was all a trick to distract the defense officers from the main attack. And even as they hurried to the general's location to prevent any potential threat, it was already too late. Despite putting up a fight, he was defeated and taken over by number 9. Everyone, including Kafka, could not save him. In fact, as soon as they reached there, they found the general alone and injured. But it turned out to be Kaiju number 9 in disguise. This Kaiju is full of surprises and twists. So obviously his daughter was angry at the kaiju for killing her father, with round 3 starting again. In this bout, there was a crucial moment when number 9 attacked Kikuro and Kurusu together, which led to Kafka having to choose between saving them or attacking number 9. Now, of course, he's the shonen protagonist here. He chose the first option to save them, but this allowed number 9 to escape just as it had planned. This was followed by the general's funeral, where Kafka felt incredibly guilty for letting number 9 escape and vowed to defeat it next time. But on top of this weight, Kafka had more burdens to bear, because a little while later, the scientists in the first division found out that a part of Kafka's hand didn't change back to normal after he transformed, making them worried that if Kafka kept transforming, he might not be able to turn back into a human. When Jen heard about this, he told Kafka that even though he shouldn't let Kafka fight anymore, he still wanted him to lend his power. Despite the pain they all felt from the general's death and number 9's increasing attacks, Jen asked Kafka to help them take down the kaiju, declaring that he would kill Kafka himself if he went wild again. There was no doubt in Kafka's mind regarding this, as he felt the same way about number 9, which is why he was willing to go to any length to neutralize him and began training. A month later, Eiji told Kafka and Kikuru that Leno had become the first person ever to use Kaiju number 6 weapon. However, Kafka wasn't that excited about this development, since numbered weapons took a huge toll on their users already. So equipment based on Dai Kaiju like number 6 is on a whole different level. But Kikuro assured Kafka that Leno was strong enough for this task and he should have faith. Later that night, Kafka bumped into Soshiro, who thanked him for saving the 3rd division in the earlier attack. Soshiro asked him not to transform into a kaiju anymore because he wanted to take down number 9 for himself. But Kafka said, "Bitch, I'm the main protagonist," so he refused to do so. Seeing this result, Soshiro offered to train him instead, so that he could rely more on his physical body than his transformation, which is why Kafka accepted this. Now, let's cue another training montage. This training began at Ryune Shrine, where after a sparring session, Hoshino praised Kafka's progress but warned him not to be overconfident. Just after Hoshino encouraged him to aim for his position as Mina's vice captain, Kafka saw a strange samurai-like ghost. Who or what the heck was that? Well, worry not, and hit the notification bell as we dive balls deep. As demonstrated in Chapter 78, numbered gear users can experience visions of their predecessors, and numbered gear can retain their individuality. Despite the reason still being unknown, Jen theorized that ghosts are the identified kaiju memories of the suit's previous user. It is, in fact, possible for a numbers weapon user to see and even sense the identified kaiju's presence whilst wearing the suit. Therefore, the ghost soldier Kafka encounters at the temple could be the previous user of the kaiju parasite. However, this raises two crucial points. First, the ghost seen by Kafka in the temple is described in more detail than the one Kikuru sees. This difference could be the fact that unlike Kikuru's kaiju, number 8 is still alive. This suggests that the vision Kafka experiences isn't merely a residue or muscle memory from the gear, but rather the actual memory of number 8. This strong memory enables Kafka to see the soldier with more detail and outside of a battle. Secondly, if we assume the soldier is from the year 1657 or around that era, since it's been confirmed that humanity has been fighting kaiju since then, it would make number 8 about 350 years old. However, given the ocean habitat of number 9 and its ability to recover by taking over a new host, it is not impossible for some kaiju to have abilities similar to a creature called the immortal jellyfish. This jellyfish is able to reverse its aging process through transforming mature cells back into their earliest form, essentially restarting its life cycle. Now, although they aren't immortal, this process allows them to prolong their lifespan by a lot. Linking this back, we saw number 8 in a baby form. So if it had a similar power, it would have escaped from number 9 and used its power to easily search for a compatible host. As a result, the soldier we saw is Kaiju number 8's previous user most likely. This means that eventually Kafka would be able to wield weapons, as the soldier was depicted with a naginata and 2 katanas. But we're not done yet, because the fighting style Kafka is learning was developed by Director General Isao Shinomiya based on past information from the Defense Force, which originated from tactics learned from slayers like the ghost samurai that we see. Isao's teachings are being interpreted by Hoshino, who is intimately connected to those past slayers. Kafka did not see the memory of the slayer until Hoshino introduced him to the fighting style from those sources. After all, even Kikuru didn't start seeing her mother until she was practicing her mother's fighting style. Therefore, there is a muscle memory connection where the kaiju's memories are triggered by known behaviors. So number 8 was only able to access the memories of the samurai host when Kafka's body and mind were following the patterns that triggered the memories. Another possibility is that number 9 can pass down memories from one body to another. It is programming each of its children with preset memories of his own choice, such as training this kaiju to believe that it was her father and she had to kill Kikuru to earn his love. In this case, number 8 could be the last fragment of Hikari Shinomiya's will, or even the offspring of the kaiju that was symbiote to that samurai. That would mean that number 8 was born with the memories of its ancestor, making him very young, whilst the memories themselves are old. So just like Kikuru is learning from the memories of her mother, Kafka has a reverse relationship wherein number 8 is learning from him. Because despite being a kaiju, number 8 was small and helpless, leading to the danger of being killed or eaten by another kaiju. It witnessed Kafka's protective nature towards Reno and decided to merge with him, gaining access to his emotions and experiences. So as number 8 grows, he learns valuable lessons such as the importance of controlling his transformations and the significance of protecting friends. Through Kafka's actions, number 8 understands the world. Their bond deepens as number 8 learns to hide his transformations and appreciates Reno's care and friendship, such as correcting its behavior from Reno's reactions to things like peeing from his chest. Thus, in moments of crisis, number 8 takes over Kafka to ensure the safety of his friends, driven by the childlike desire to maintain the goals of his host and its own to destroy all kaiju. But moving back to the story, 3 months later, Kafka met Mina and they reminisced about their childhood promise to defeat all the kaiju, followed by Mina thanking him. Everything was silent as the only kaiju reports were short appearances. These kaijus did nothing much except stuff like compete with cars by running at high speeds for 12 kilometers and vanished before the troops could get there. However, this was the calm before the storm, as number 9 had organized the most widespread and devastating kaiju attack in human history. A huge number of powerful kaiju were unleashed, and some of these were trained with the memories of the general to counter their opponents perfectly. Now, what does this mean? Well, Kikuru's weakness was her emotional vulnerability, so the kaiju used psychological attacks. And to combat Mina, who was the only powerhouse handling long-range weapons and destroying massive daikaijus, number 9 trained a kaiju that kept moving, so Mina couldn't even take aim. During this, Kafka was in action alongside the 1st Division when 6 daikaiju started closing in on the coast. Kafka requested the platoon leader to mobilize, but as a dumbass, she refused, opting to keeping him as their secret weapon. However, kaiju number 13 had other plans. Editor, show them what happened. Yup, the platoon leaders were packed up, bruh. We're smoking their pack as they were done for, forcing Kafka to step in and save Rin from the rogue kaiju. This means it was about time for Kafka to transform, which triggered the Defense Force scanner and the senses of the 5 new identified kaiju that attacked the other officers. Earlier, he had promised Kikuru that he wouldn't save her because he trusted her, which is why he communicated the same to her and prepared to confront Kaiju number 13. As the kaiju enlarged its muscles to deliver a powerful punch, Kafka effortlessly blocked that shit and counter-attacked with a single punch, sending number 13 crashing into a wall and killing it. At the same time, he learned that Mina had defeated kaiju number 14, making Kafka feel inferior in the face of her immense power. However, like always, the bad news arrived. This day can't get any worse.
Yeah, they had us the first half, I'm not gonna lie.
Kaiju number 9 hacked into the Defense Force communications, acknowledging the officer's performance but claiming victory for itself. When Kurusu announced number 9's appearance in Tachikawa, Kafka immediately was worried about Mina's safety and transformed to go rescue her, determined not to repeat the incident that resulted in Director Shinomiya's death. So at the same time, number 9 is yapping in Kafka's ear, taunting the dude, talking shit basically, as the 3rd wave of kaiju was unleashed on the exhausted Defense Force officers across all of Tokyo. That's right, this was number 9's plan all along, using a huge army of kaiju with a bunch of broken monsters. All the forces were divided and exhausted as number 9 wanted to take down and assimilate with the strongest soldiers. And that started with Mina herself facing number 9. This danger of losing his girlfriend made Kafka declare war on the new wave of Daikaiju. So when 2 of them targeted civilians, Kafka swiftly destroyed them. Whilst in the background, number 9 explained that despite Kafka's superiority, he couldn't allow Kaiju to harm civilians or officers, which meant he wouldn't reach Mina in time. He also claimed that the defense force had no data on most of these Kaijus, so it was impossible for anyone to save Mina. Kafka was powerless and had to listen as she was taken away, pushing him into a dilemma. As time slowly ticks away, number 9 is slowly absorbing Mina, mocking Kafka for his inability to let go of the things he loves. However, guess what? A new Kaiju reading suddenly emerged. Leno finally appeared behind Kafka, equipped with number 6 weapon, urging Kafka to go after Mina whilst he dealt with the 3rd wave. In his rage, Kafka punched and ran his way towards Tachikawa, barely making it in time to save Mina, who was already unconscious. She put up her best fight, and even animal cruelty services need to be called in this because a tiger was helping, and even that knocked out. But whilst Mina confessed how lonely and scared she was, Kafka intervened by blowing off number 9's arm completely. Even number 9 was shocked that Kafka had arrived, knowing that he wasn't aware of anyone being able to use number 6 weapon. Moreover, Hoshino informed Kafka that time was running out for reinforcements to hold out before the whole area is about to collapse. Kafka right here, right now, had to take number 9 down, to which he replied like Gojo, saying, "Nah, I win," even flexing that he had completely mastered the general's fighting style. As a result, number 9 keeps getting shocked and bamboozled as it realizes that Kafka is now way stronger than he was before, and it was no mistake that he was standing right there in front of his ugly ass eyes. Both of them will be equal in terms of strength and power, but the only difference is that whilst number 9 manipulated its own creations such as her, Kafka on the other hand has people rooting for him. Now to enjoy more peak fiction, watch this video on your screen right now.